Okay, let's get some clarification. When I say Justin Fields, I mean his situation in Chicago and his getting replaced by Caleb Williams. And it's not just Fields. We're going through the 6 teams that selected a quarterback in the first round. Even Atlanta. I know. But anyways, let's start with the title namesake, the Bears. In the comparison this year, Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. And I know, the Cardinals don't seem like they would draft a quarterback next year. That's crazy. And I would be inclined to agree with you if it was Chicago and it was last year. Look, I had a lot of faith in Fields. I was and still am a Fields believer, as evidenced by my last video. I trust that Kyler might do well this year. But he's closer to this year's Justin Fields than anyone. He's fast, he's on a team that's rebuilding from the bottom up and starting to add some weapons. And the year before this season was supposed to be potentially a make-or-break year for him. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So if things go wrong this year for Kyler, we could see Arizona take a potentially overhyped quarterback on what was an overhyped mid-college team in the first round. Wait. The next is Sam Howell, a player on a team with all-right weapons and a questionable O-line and is trying to prove himself in his first full year as a starter after falling down the draft boards. Oh, I know a good comparison. Will Levis. Yes, the mailman himself. I think many people expect Tennessee to go quarterback next year just because Will Levis could be mid or quite possibly bad, and I want to have hope in him. But he compares pretty well to Sam Howell's situation in Washington last year. Could be a high likelihood to have a Howell-type season. Hopefully I'm wrong. I never like to see quarterbacks not succeed. I'm just a nice guy. Okay, the Cleveland Masseuse. I don't want him to succeed. But Tennessee really could be looking at Quinn Ewers next year at pick 2. Alright, you know those heart rate machines at hospitals that show the pulse rise and fall? Well, one of those rises and falls is Mac Jones' career. Just one. Promising season a couple years ago. Looked like a relatively restored franchise after the retirement of one of their greatest ever quarterbacks. Then fell off and is now at risk of losing a job. The difference? Mac Jones was filling in for Tom Brady, and Daniel Jones was filling in for Tom's father. I mean, they have the same last name. It's perfect. You could argue that Mac Jones was a rookie and he had his good year while Daniel Jones had his good year in 2022, 3 years after he was drafted. But if you flipped Mac Jones' rookie year and second year, you might have talked about him very similarly. I was originally just going to skip this one because the Falcons were just weird this year in the draft by selecting Michael Penix. And it's not that I think he's bad. He's...
Again, launching for the end zone, caught, touchdown, Penix lobs it into the end zone, touchdown.
Okay. It's just that when you have a hole at the edge rusher position, you should probably address that before a position with 3 to 4 more years left in the tank. I mean, seriously, Dallas Turner and Laiatu Latu were right there. Anyways, I'm honestly tempted to say Bryce Young and the Panthers if Young does not perform appropriately this year. But Ritter was a third rounder. There was no guarantee or big risk for him being the starter. The Panthers, however, sold their souls to Chicago in exchange for Bryce Young. He needs to do well. There just aren't any young mid-quarterbacks besides Young in the league. Oh, wait, there is one. It's just Daniel Jones, a guy that we've already replaced. Daniel Jones is the ideal fit for a spot. If, say, the Giants sign a QB, then draft a guy like Dylan Gabriel, Jalen Milroe, or whoever's still there. If we're keeping it as if it's in the same universe, all these picks in a row, then we say Bryce Young just because he's probably the next young guy likely to be replaced that hasn't been mentioned. But realistically, it would probably be Danny Dimes, who's kind of like Danny Drugs in that recent interview. You saw his eyes. They were just, they're just staring at me. That's what several seasons in New Jersey does to you. Kirk Cousins has made this video a lot more difficult than it should. I have to find the equivalent of the 35-year-old, and looking at it, I wanted to say I could do the Cowboys if Dak Prescott walks in free agency, but I forgot that Russell Wilson's contract is still being paid by Denver, and the Steelers are only paying him for 1 more year. So Russ and Cousins are similar in age, but Dak Prescott is in a similar situation to what Cousins was in last year. From the standpoint that teams probably are going to want Prescott if he walks just like they wanted Cousins last year. And the Cowboys are probably also going to try and get him, but they seem to be a little bit stuck right now. As well as the Cowboys have a pretty washed running back who's not starting material, Zeke, and an insane top 5 wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb. Bottom line, if the Cowboys don't extend Dak before the season starts, Dak is this year's Cousins, and if they do, then Wilson is this year's Cousins. You honestly probably don't want to be Cousins because it means you could just tear your Achilles soon. And finally, we have the team that took yours truly's favorite quarterback in the draft, Bo Nix. So who are we looking for as a comparison to Russell Wilson? An overpaid quarterback who's just a shell of his former self and is declining. Oh, I know. How about that one Masuso was talking about earlier, Deshaun Watson? The man is not good, both ethically and at football. The 2020 season, where he somehow threw for 4,800 yards on a 4-12 Texans team, was a miracle looking back at it. And he's not the same guy. The Texans were looking to ship him off, and the Browns really wanted him for some reason, despite him not playing football for like a year. So much so that he is still the quarterback with the highest guaranteed money. I don't know how Andrew Berry had a job after that. And Cleveland is now kind of stuck. Releasing him incurs a massive penalty, and no team wants to take that cap on in a trade. Also, as a side note, how did two of the worst trades in NFL history happen in a single offseason? Who let this happen? But anyways, there we have it. All 6 teams, all 6 quarterbacks, all weird moves. I'll see you all next time.